We patiently waited for Dolly Parton to end because you don't want to interrupt that song. Brief introduction and one little addition to the intro that we just had is we will try to get audience questions in, but we have so much information in our panels, we often fill the whole thing getting to the end. So if we manage to get this in with enough time for questions, we'll of course entertain it, but hopefully you'll be so inundated with information you won't miss it if we don't. So who are we? I'm Pablo Hidalgo. I'm from Lucasfilm, and the main thing that's important to know about me in context of this panel is I'm one of those nerds that goes really, really deep into trivia and information when it comes to the making of the original trilogy, and in particular, my favorite scene in it, which is the cantina. And that's how this gentleman and I have bonded over the years, is just doing some very deep explorations.
That's for sure. Oh, I don't know if I have a microphone here. Maybe? Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay. I'm Tom Spina. I also am obsessed with the cantina ever since I was a little kid. It's what drove me into making monsters and masks and special effects. And over the years, I've gotten to do everything from restoring original props at the Lucasfilm Archives to making creatures that showed up in The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett and things like that, and working with Lucasfilm and Disney and theme parks, all of that fun stuff. And I have another company called Regal Robot where we make replicas of cool Star Wars and Indiana Jones stuff that you guys can buy. So maybe go to regalrobot.com and check out what we do. But in the meantime, we're about to dive very, very deeply into the principal photography of the Star Wars Cantina. And there's a reason that we say the principal photography, because the scene was actually shot 2 times.
Yeah, and so just a bit of background. This panel grew, it's grown over the years, and it grew so big that we had to split it into 2. And the cleanest place to split it is the fact that the cantina was shot twice. It was shot during principal photography in April of 1976. After George Lucas and crew spent some time in the desert, they all then went to EMI Elstree Studios outside of London to do the studio shoot, and that included the cantina, which was shot, just a little background information, on starting April 13th, and then they went to about April 20th, and they was shot at Stage 6, which also housed Docking Bay 94 and the alleyways of Mos Eisley. So all that was within walking distance of each other, which is why you'll often see people from the cantina in those environments.
Right, and they were shooting a lot of this concurrently. Like they were doing some of the Docking Bay scenes with Jabba, which actually, that even got shot twice because of a lens issue. But some of that was being done at the same time, and that's why some of the rare the Cantina actor photos are in front of the Millennium Falcon, because that was the set that was empty next door, so they could do their photography on that. The second time it was shot was in a very small studio, as you could see here, in Los Angeles, with literally one booth that they just rejiggered a few different ways to make it look like different places. And they shot a whole bunch of insert shots with all new aliens that were done by Rick Baker's crew. We'll be talking about this tomorrow.
Yeah, and just to answer the question, why? Well, once George got all the footage back from the Cantina shoot in England, and he was cutting it together, and he was not liking what he saw. You know, not to point fingers, but there are a number of reasons that were brought up, including issues of budget and schedule, that the Cantina creatures just did not end up being as diverse and interesting as he had hoped. So he got a little extra money from Fox, and he scheduled pickup photography. Remember, the movie's coming out in May. In January of 1977 to shoot the cantina scene again. So it was pretty hectic times.
And while they're making that, this is probably a story for tomorrow, but they actually picked out the monsters that might become the chess monsters, and that was being shot during the wrap party for ILM. So they really were down to the wire on this movie. But going back to England. Well, there's Rick Baker's crew. So if you want to see these guys, tomorrow, is it 1 p.m. at this room?
I forget, but
I can look that up.
Look it up. 1?
Thank you. 1 p.m. tomorrow. So everybody who's here, we expect you there tomorrow if this goes well. So at the end of this, we're going to ask if it went well, and then we'll hopefully see some of you then. We're going to start, though, in a very strange place. We're going to start in 1985. We have made it kind of our mission to identify a lot of the actors in this scene. There's a surprising number of human beings in the scene.
Morphing had not been invented yet, so that's as close as they could get.
So Ted Burnett, the bartender of Star Wars, someone who I always thought was wearing a prosthetic nose and fake eye bags and a split lip prosthetic. I thought this was all makeup. Like, no. That's his face. So we thought this was really neat. Oh, he turns up in a music video. How funny. So just a month ago, the Cantina bar guy again. And he's got a great outfit. It's Andy Summers and Robert Fripp. The music video is Parade. Apparently, these guys were just in the circuit.
Yeah, there's his mugshot. So one of the things we're going to show you is to fill out the Cantina scene, especially with the humans. The production company went to a casting agency that's still around, I believe.
It is.
Based in the UK, and it's the Ugly Casting Agency. That's what it's called. So you know what you're going to get. Basically, what they're looking, if you're not looking for movie star looks, but you want someone who looks distinctive, there's these amazing catalogs of headshots, and the website now, it's now online. Ugly.com might be. Well, search for it before you plunge into something unguarded. But it's that kind of casting. If you're looking for a guy who looks like Ted Burnett.
And as a friend of mine once said, that's a lady killer because he probably killed a woman. And if the bottom left there are actually Stuart Freeborn's handwritten notes, I have a whole booklet full of Stuart's notes about various actors that were either going to be aliens or be humans and have makeups on them and things like that. The Cirque 23 there is his head circumference. So if anybody ever wants to make a properly sized Ted Burnett mask, you can do it.
There's his beauty shots right here.
There's his Ugly Agency at splash page. It's got his full measurements too, 5'11", and so, ladies, he's single. No, I don't know, but he's.
So Wikipedians, if you want to update Wooher's
thank
height,
you. Yes,
we
please.
Actually have it.
Someone make sure they get that. What was neat is there's some notes in here that the orchestra consists of these numbers on the bottom. The numbers refer to the little circled numbers underneath some of the characters in John Molo's notes. And the bartender is actually slated to be in the orchestra at one point.
Well, now we know he has musical talent from the music videos.
That's true.
So.
Maybe that's how he got the job.
Yeah.
But he's not the only guy that shows up in music videos. Does anybody recognize this face? Okay, of course you do. Anyone? All right. Does anybody recognize him if I show you that? So Alfie Curtis actually plays the bully that accosts Luke Skywalker in the Cantina, and I almost think he could have gone without the makeup, and he still would have had almost the same look. You could see some of his measurements. He was coming in for a life cast on Tuesday the 16th, for anybody curious, and he was cast, according to Stuart Freeborn's notes, he was ugly human.
Ugly human, yeah. His character name, again, another great piece of music video history. If you're really looking for Alfie Curtis, he is in the Aha Take On Me video.
But only in the rotoscoped, sketched over stuff. He's one of the two thugs chasing them. And you can see him in the bottom right there, looking very Dr. Evazan there. And then to the left, he plays a priest just in the background of this Madness video. It's just him and Ted Burnett just turning up everywhere. Yeah. Literally everywhere. Here they are on the Larry Grayson show wearing sailor outfits for some reason. This is my new screensaver, by the way.
Excellent action figure custom.
And just like the happy face on both of them there. I love that you pointed these guys out early on.
Yeah, because as we discovered, there's a lot of back and forth. A lot of people who are in the Cantina are in Docking Bay 94 and back and backwards and forwards. So these guys who we know as Jabba's thugs, and they're in the special edition version of Docking Bay 94 because they're with the CG Jabba. They were originally there on location or on the set. They're also at the far end of the bar, and we've spotted them.
By the way, that's the pickle head with the gas mask in front with the gas mask up.
Oh, no,
that's
so that's
that
Diana's
shape that you see. So
there,
that's the nose of the
mask.
Nose, which they removed eventually. Yeah. But so there's some other shots of him. Tommy Weldon plays the guy with the glasses.
Yeah, for those who know, the character is Jella Yeens. I had to look that up because I forgot. He only ever was named in a 1995 collectible card game. Same with this guy, Boello.
I'm ashamed of you.
Yeah. We always called him just pointy hat guy.
That's right. Yes. Well, what's funny is that pointy hat guy is someone we don't know who played. It's a rare instance where we've got a clear look at a guy's face and we've got no idea who he was. But he is carrying Walrus Man's blaster. So my headcanon is that the fight happens and he does one of these like, huh? And just
ooh, free gun. This guy's great. His name is such a Star Wars name. It's like you don't even have to change it. Ron Tar. He's just this big burly guy who's at the back of the Cantina. But you may remember him most from another Lucasfilm production. He's Lug from Willow, the guy who screams out "not a woman" when Mad Morgan is trying to disguise the fact that he's been canoodling with Lug's wife. So.
And
That's
he
him.
was known as Big Ron Tar, by
Big
the way,
Ron
because
Tar.
of course.
Yeah.
And there's Big Ron Tar,
Love him.
who is listed as a Corellian pirate, and he was getting GMU, which is general makeup, from Stuart Freeborn's notes. But behind him is someone that drove us nuts for so long. We called him the guy behind the jug. The reason we called him that is because he was always the guy behind a jug. Every photo we found of him,
like,
he was behind a jug. You, however, managed to do some Photoshop wizardry and unfurl a picture of him through the jug enough that we could identify him as Fred Wood.
Yeah. And just so you know, we're working this in two directions. We have documentation with a bunch of names, and then we look up whatever photos we can. And this is like the candidate was like 99% match. This has got to be Fred Wood because we haven't found Fred Wood anywhere else in the cantina.
There is a bit of process of elimination, and we've also, with a lot of these guys, that information is coming not from where you would think, like an official source. A lot of it is like Stuart Freeborn had notes of how many, of people's names. John Molo had notes of people's names, but the call sheets for each day just say like 20 people in the background, or 3 farmers and 4 space pirates, or whatever. Does anybody recognize this fella from the cantina?
Yeah,
that's right. It is.
Right.
That's right. So that's Roy State as
Danik Jericho is the name he ended up getting in the 90s.
And he got nose, teeth, and some kind of, is that Gen makeup? I don't know.
Yeah.
But so this was a fella named Nick Maley, who is actually still around and a great source for some of these stories of what happened on the makeup team. He worked on Stewart's team. This was his first on-screen makeup, was Roy State as a smoker. And Roy is carrying a Rebel blaster in his holster on the right side there.
Yeah. And I will note that, so he has a very elaborate backstory in the expanded universe for those who have not read those books. He turns out he's a 1,000-year-old vampire that sucks the luck out of your body. Right. That is not from anything in the documentation of the movie. That was just someone just riffing on who this character could be. Now, my theory is there's a bunch of people that you're going to see in the cantina with oddly shaped noses and growths and whatnot. And some of the notations beside them had the word mutant. I think that there was the number of humans that are in the cantina include people who are mutated. I don't know why, but they just are. So in the back of our mind, we always just kind of say, well, that's one of the mutants. That's one of the mutants. Yeah. In fact, we think, this is not confirmed, this is just our theory, that Dr. Evazan, whose name was never Dr. Evazan, it was Grubby Human, we think he's also a mutant who is scarred. I think that's the origin of his particular look.
Right. And they're in a spaceport. They're sucking up all kinds of fumes. You don't know what could happen.
So you said smoker, but
right.
we should have asked you to be more specific.
Because there is another This is a final shot from the movie. That guy with his cigarette just behind him. Well, I got to put it out? What do you mean? All right, rolling,
So it's one of these things, don't tell Disney or else they'll change the rating on Star Wars because there's one cigarette in it.
So he's one of the local bureaucrats. Isaac Grand is one of them, and George Stock, who also shows up at the end of the movie looking, what a head of hair on that guy. Oh, man, yeah. And not as much of a head of hair. There's Isaac Grand. He's hanging out in the back with the Tonica sisters, as they came to be known. Here's one of our favorites.
Oh, this guy's great.
We found his headshots. So Lucasfilm had headshots they did of people. They didn't have names on them. We had to put all of this together. This fella named Bobby Ramsey said he would lose the mustache, but if you look in the left in the final film,
Clearly
he didn't.
Wanted to hear that conversation. Okay, can you lose your mustache? No. That's his face.
But this guy tells you no. But here's the thing. He was a boxer, and his side view kind of proves that out. Yeah, that's the right reaction. Whoever went, ooh, that every time
we always joked, like we saw his headshot from the front. It's like, why is he at the ugly agency? There's really nothing all too bad about. And then we got to the next picture. It's
okay, yeah. All right. So Robert Davis came in. Technically Davies, but it was Davis on Stewart's notes in one place, right. Davies in another. He was listed as having short red hair and funny eyes by Stewart. He's hanging out behind Obi-Wan and Chewie and the praying mantis there. He's in some great behind-the-scenes footage, giving a smile to the camera.
And this is what I mean by the mutant look. That's what I think that is right there.
Yeah, and these are obviously quick makeups. This was stuff that they knew was going to be deep background. Talking about deep background, we found this guy in the background of some behind-the-scenes footage. And we're like, who is this guy? He's hanging out in a monk's robe and glasses. It's Stephen Calcutt, who was Chewie's stand-in. So that's why he's next to Boshek there, because that's where Chewie's going to be standing in the movie. He's there to make sure the lighting reference is right. But they didn't give him a Wookiee costume.
No, they're not going to spend money for the Wookiee stand-in, but it's like we need a big brown shape to figure out what the lighting and framing is.
Put that tall guy in a brown robe, would you? Here's another deep background. So Colin Skeeping is actually Mark Hamill's stunt double in a number of scenes. He's in there when Luke crashes into the table. I guess, they put a stunt guy in that place rather than an actor in case someone got hurt. Here's one we never thought we'd find this guy.
This is how deep we go. Like, we're total forensics. The Zapruder
Has anybody
film
zoned
is
out
not
yet?
close.
It gets better.
Yeah.
Trust me. Yeah. A friend of ours, Leia Battle, actually found this guy in a Doctor Who episode. He's like, I know those eyebrows because of Tom and Pablo's panel, and I was never so proud in my whole life. So that's Bob Watson. Mandy Morton.
Local girl. She was given the name Swilla Corey in the card game.
Correct.
And we found in the notes of the John Molo's notes, there were like, I think 3 or 4 local girls.
Right.
And they all, basically, there was a local girl outfit. This is the Tatooine farm girl that has gotten to the city and gone to the bar. Cammy, Luke's friend from Tashi Station, wears the same cut of outfit. We see another woman wearing the outfit in the alleyways of Mos Eisley. It's not any of the other 2 girls. Yep. So this is the Tatooine local girl look.
And Han's girlfriend has the same look, but with a reddish kind of tunic instead.
Yeah. So again, if you don't know the history, in the rough cut of Star Wars, it's not in the final cut, but when Obi-Wan cuts off the arm of the thugs that are bugging Luke, we get a reaction shot of Han looking at it, and then before they go and sit and negotiate the Falcon deal, he basically says, all right, see you later, sweetheart, gives her a smooch, and she walks away. So Han was basically flirting with a local girl before any of the action happened.
And the best part of this, so the original cut of the Cantina is available. It's on one of the Blu-ray releases, I think. And it can also be found on YouTube and things like that.
Yeah, I think it's on Disney Plus under extras as well.
Oh, there you go. Watch it. It is amazing. It's a much slower pace, but there are long shots of aliens you never get to see otherwise. There's stuff like Han's girlfriend here. But the best part about it is the last shot of the scene where he walks out plays longer before the wipe. And right as he's leaving, she walks up, looks, sees him go, and goes, huh, and walks away. Yeah. It's just...
Cold, Han, cold.
Yeah. There is a weird girl in the Cantina, though. Yeah. Literally called Weird Girl in the notes for the show.
She's one of our favorites because she's not only a great looking character, but she's a really good sport, and she actually collected a lot of information about her appearance, including, as we've noted here, a 1976 selfie before selfies were even really a thing. She took a photo of herself in the...
And to the right side of that frame is Stuart Freeborn sketching out ideas for what her hair might look like in the shape of the head and things like that. It was initially possible she was going to get tattoos. There's her head circumference, again, for anybody who's collecting this information. I don't know. And again, weird girl, bald head. Yeah. And that's her knitting on set, which she said she used to do all the time. To her left is, I think, Chris Bunn, one of the Spacers. And further to the left is...
Barbara. We've got it somewhere. No,
it's
but
later in the thing. But she's playing one of the quote walrus characters, which has also became Mosep or Twazka or whatever.
All right, so these sisters have a whole history to them.
Yeah. A lot of folks had the impression they were twins for years because of the way the stories were written. This is actually one of them, Angela Staines. She had a nice shot in front of the stage 4 door. That's great. They were also from, believe it or not, the Ugly Agency.
Now, why would they be ugly? They're not. No. Again, Ugly's mandate is unusual as well.
I guess, and they were tall.
They're tall. They're both like over or at least 6 feet tall. Which, if Chrissy's lists her height as 5'12", that's 6 feet. What are we doing here? But
yeah, and for Angie, she actually went by the name Angie Who for a while, but changed it, and so that's why you see 2 different names there. This is some of Stewart's sketches on the left, showing them possibly getting mohawks. We thought that was a Greedo sketch the first time we saw it. And then John Molo's sketch working out what their costumes would look like, and you could see the mohawk in his sketch there.
So yeah, this is the source of a lot of confusion. In 1989, Galaxy Guide 1, A New Hope, a role-playing game supplement from West End Games, gave names and backgrounds. ISBN numbers. No, I'm just
Okay.
kidding. Gave a lot of names and backgrounds to Cantina aliens that had not been named or given backgrounds before. So it included the Tonica sisters, and specifically said that they were twins, and included this artwork, which is actually which is based on photography of it's Christina Hewitt flipped. So of course they're identical because it's the same piece of artwork flipped, right? But in reality, the girls look nothing alike, and we just didn't have the resources and the references back in the day to call anyone on this. I mean, not that I was with the company, but even fans were like, yeah, okay, I'll buy that.
Right.
And so short stories then had to come out once these visuals were more disseminated and people understood. It was really Decipher using the card game to give you visuals from the movies, and it became clear that these are not identical twins. So Tim Zahn created this whole short story in the first Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina, which reveals that the sisters in the cantina are imposters pretending to be the Tonica sisters. That's really, really convoluted. And now sort of the more streamlined version of it is like they were never twins. Let's just forget the twin part. Right. This is who they are, and this is what they represent. So
all because of one lazy artist. Some more smoking. This is Boschek doing his between takes on set photography, and he's got his smokes in a bag so that he doesn't so he's not using them on set, I guess. For years, people said though that he was played by Anthony Lang. As you can see by this great side view that we got of each of them, it is not Anthony
Clearly,
Lang.
there's no way.
It eventually came out that it is Francis Alfred Basil Tomlin.
Great name.
Great name.
And was it a result of one of our panels?
It was a result. So we had a panel where we said we don't know who played Boschek. This guy Billy Jensen, who is like a forensic journalist who goes and finds serial killers, made it his mission to find Boschek, and wound up finding someone who was a relative and said, "Oh yeah, that was my dad." And it's like, "No, not really." And they eventually furnished a photo of him, and sure enough, that was him doing the eyebrow.
Yeah, I think his claim to fame includes helping find the Golden State Killer and
Boschek.
You know?
The sideburn guy from the cantina. We thought this fella walking around could have been Anthony Lang. Turns out that's Bill Risley, who shows up later in the Rebel briefing as well. A lot of the cantina extras show up as Rebels and things like that later, or Imperials. The pointy hat guy shows up as a Rebel tech.
That's right, yeah.
And an Imperial when they're walking by the Death Star droid.
A bunch of Imperials show up in the Rebel base afterwards. So
Yeah.
it's like, all right.
They changed sides.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, this isn't going well for us.
So here, finally, we did, well, okay, where is Anthony Lang? And
right.
there he is.
So he's there in the Rebel briefing. He's also in Return of the Jedi as one of the Emperor's guys. However, Salo Gardner and Anthony Lang, we've just recently found in the deep corners of the cantina, using blurry photos and all this other stuff, we got some better looks. They're listed on the right in pink. You can see they were listed as, what are they? Local ugly men.
Yeah.
All right? Not kind. Tomorrow, we will have a whole saga of Salo Gardner. There's a lot of backstory there. It's really fun, really interesting. If you happen to be able to get to our next panel, you're going to enjoy that. Francis Bazzoni also turns up in Return of the Jedi as a dignitary.
I love that photo of the dignitaries because it's such an album cover.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like it's got the space at the top for the title of the album and everything.
And the space at the bottom for the advisory label of...
Oh, that's definitely getting a warning label. Oh, poor Jeffrey Moon. For years, people said it was Gilda Cohen that played this guy, and instead it's this fella named Jeffrey Moon. He's 5'2". We've got his neck size and head circumference again for anyone who needs that information.
This is wonderful.
His jacket that he wore to photo day is just incredible. It's like Miami, Florida jacket with just on point embroidery. So he. Eventually, we did manage to identify him. We even got to name the character, and so just very happy to do that and to set the record straight.
To give him his moment.
He's
dignified,
that
who
fella.
is Little Emperor? This is one of these little marginal notes. There's a character named Little Emperor in the cantina, and the name Gilda Cohen was attached to it. Right. So,
yep. And that's kind of almost still a mystery. Yeah. Gilda Cohen and Graham Freeborn, who's Stuart Freeborn's son, Stuart, the makeup artist who made Yoda and Chewbacca and a lot of these cantina monsters, was the real-life girlfriend, partner, whatever, of the fella next to her in the picture with the Tonica sisters. Oh, why can't I think of his name?
Oh, right.
Oh. He's the little German from
Yeah.
Top Secret.
It's not Barry Nome. It's we'll get to him.
It'll get there.
Yeah.
But she actually played Cabe for a couple of days, and then she had claustrophobia in the mask. And I've lost it. Son of a gun.
Barry Nome. Barry Nome replaced.
No, it wasn't him.
Was
It's
it
the
Barry?
other. No, it's the other fellow who did the story. Anyway,
get to it.
it'll pop into one of our brains later, and we'll just shout names out. So anyway, truly a wretched hive of humans. That said, plenty of aliens to be found, including a giant dewback outside with George Lucas riding it. And I just love this photo, and it's for no reason other than that we made sure to include it. On the original entranceway to the cantina, went through a few revisions. Early was supposed to look like it was made out of wreckage because, as you see out in front, there is this wrecked spaceship. And there's actually, have you ever seen the production design that they drew of what that spaceship looked like?
Yeah,
and it matches up.
John Barry, I believe,
Yes.
designed the ship before they stripped it apart to make it a damaged ship. Yeah.
And ultimately, the final design has a Perspex sign at the top. So there's a lighted sign at the top of the cantina. For years, we never knew what it was. This was the best shot we ever had. It was always obscured. It was like the guy behind the jug all over again.
Yeah.
But we managed to get this shot from Roger Christian, who was a set decorator, where the sign wasn't lit, and we could say confidently that SPGA is the name of the cantina. We don't know what that
Spaga,
means.
yeah.
Spaga.
And we were able to get that information to the Mando production
right.
team in time for their Cantina episode where we go into that in season 1. And so they were able to recreate that signage.
And you get a nice, bright, clear shot of the Spaga logo. So there you go. And that's, if anybody ever wondered what the butt end of a dewback looked like, that's that, as well as a gerba there. The dewback was huge. That's a guy named Fred Pearl, who was one of the sculptors. It was his shop that sculpted this. It originally, in John Barry's sketch there, has a
frill.
Frill, a sort of triceratops kind of thing. That was eventually removed before they took it to Tunisia, or removed on Tunisia. So the final look, as you can see here in this kind of rare other side photo of him, is pretty awesome. He's built on the body of a rhinoceros. So it's a faux taxidermy rhinoceros body that they used, and they just sculpted a head and tail for it. This is an early Ron Cobb painting over there that George apparently saw in Ron Cobb's house before Star Wars, and Ron always kind of contended that he might have taken that idea for the dewback.
Here's the other critter that is outside of the cantina, the gerba.
Yeah, and that's so that on the left is in the studio that made him. That's somebody that worked with Fred Pearl at Art Models, and on the right is actually George and Marcia Lucas at a charity event where they brought a bunch of the original props from the movie shortly after the movie wrapped, and one of them was the gerba.
Here, a bunch of the Cantina aliens that they're photographed in the Mos Eisley alleyway scene. So we see them in much better lighting than we ordinarily are able to see them.
And you've also got a lot of the mask creators and stuff too. So if you're going left to right, standing in between the hare mouse and the rat is Chris Tucker, who also was famous for doing The Elephant Man and a lot of other films after that. Nick Maley in the amazing sweater right there. Sitting in between Cabe and one of the Crockers on the floor is Sylvia Croft. Standing above her with the tie is Graham Freeborn. To the right, Kay Freeborn, Stuart Freeborn's wife. And far right, wearing Kirk's jacket from Star Trek 3, is
really.
Robin Grantham.
So here's a big mystery. So the Greedo mask we often saw labeled as Martians and as their production name. But we discovered that they actually originated from another, like the core of the mask was from an alien made for a TV commercial.
Yeah. And it was always said to be, Stewart said it was for a Bird's Eye Peas commercial. There were also a series of Bird's Eye Beef Burger commercials in England around that same time, and my theory is it could have been one of those. And Stewart, I got to meet him in 2005 and spend a lot of time going through old photos and asking him questions that I'm sure annoyed him. No, he was absolutely wonderful, and Kay as well, and they had this photo on the left showing the alien they made. And if you look on the right, you can still see the brows poking through as eyelids on Greedo on the right, and Nick Maley had to stick all those little warts on one by one. And the cool thing is that let us actually identify the different Greedo masks because everyone was different. But we've never found the commercial, so keep your eyes peeled.
Yeah, that's why we always ask everyone, if you're on the internet, try to find a frozen peas commercial from the early 70s.
Or beef burger.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. These are some great sketches that John Mullo made. What he would do is go and visit Stewart's workshop and sketch what the masks looked like quick so that he could go and try and design the costumes for them. And one of those sketches is of what became, they called it the Plutonian alien. It's actually built on the same mask as the Greedo. I actually own the original mask of the Plutonian that was used in the movie, and I never really thought much about the anatomy of the face underneath. But once I saw this sketch from John Mullo, I'm like, wait a minute, he's got the smile and the ears. And I went and looked at my mask under the gas mask, and you could still see the brow ridge and the little tip of the nose. And at some point, they must have torn the nose off, but it's definitely the same understructure. And then they fabricated the big pickle head on top of it.
So yeah, the four-armed creature and the Greedo creature, which have since been named the Morsirians and the Rhodians, they are very closely related, at least as far as the production history goes, because they're based on the same foundation. Yeah. And in fact, in some of these early sketches, you see that the four-armed attribute was actually going to be given to the Greedos, to the Rhodians, and the Neptunians, or the Morsirians, or Plutonians, I should say, did not. So.
And Diana Sadley Way was the one who acted as the Plutonian in the movie, whereas Paul Blake, Janice Burchett, and Linda Jones, I don't think all three of them actually played Greedo aliens. I think Paul Blake certainly did. I feel like Linda Jones wound up one of the walruses.
But in the Docking Bay 94, though, we have other Rhodians, so that could have been where they were all used. So.
True. One thing that's really neat is that Han didn't just shoot him under the table; he shot him through the table, which is just really cool, and you never really see that in the movie. This is them setting up the dummy, and if you look to the top left, behind Greedo, there's this great little bit of Greebly stuff on there, and there's a hidden comm link in it. And it's like, does that mean the Empire was listening the whole time? Do they have like listening devices everywhere, or is it just a little bit of reused set dressing?
Yeah. These are the Crockers. They're known formally in the expanded universe and lore as the Saurins, but they were Crockers on set because of their crocodile looks. And one of them was basically, there were two in the Cantina, and one of them ended up getting redressed and repainted to be Bosk in The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. And Bosk actually wears an old pressure suit that one of the guys in the Cantina wears, and it also shows up in a movie, First Men in the Moon, which has, if I remember right, some Harryhausen animation in it. There's a lot of recycled spacesuit stuff. There's stuff from the Planet of the Apes spacesuits, things that trace all the way back to a Jerry Lewis movie called Way, Way Out. They turn up in Get Smart, etc. This helmet was actually from, traces back to the same sort of suit that William Shatner wears in an Outer Limits episode. Go tell him that. I'm sure he'd love to hear it.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, so this was another one where you've got somebody in the Rebel hangar who actually turns up in the Cantina as one of the spacers. This was fun.
Oh yeah, nice little piece of set dressing, because you never get a good look at this, but these are one of the cups that are on the table where Han and Greedo are at, and we recognize the logo on the side of it. I think Chris Trevis was the one who found this out. Yeah, and it's just a piece of art direction, a little piece of artwork that ends up on the Rebel helmets as well. So who knows what that means? It's just one company makes everything in Star Wars.
But what was it you said? Was it buy a helmet, get a cup?
Yeah, exactly.
This is another piece. It's just a straight U.S. like normal keyboard, but it's upside down, so it's a space keyboard.
Yeah, makes it space.
But that's how Wara takes everybody's order. Behind him, a lot of people already know this, but these are engine parts from an airplane engine that actually turn up in the bar and as IG-88's head. And there's other parts from that same engine that turn up. And in fact, a tiny, tiny piece of it is the emitter of Obi-Wan's lightsaber, and something that was discovered maybe 15 or 20 years ago by someone taking apart an engine. But we like to look in the deep background.
We go in the shadows.
And we're looking here, and we're like, okay, I see the fly alien. You never really see him much. I see the land speeder sales guy person. I see, one of the walrus aliens. This is great. But we didn't notice there's a giant crocodile just on the wall, just hanging out. And it's a taxidermy of with a gharial crocodile, an Indian fish-eating crocodile, and it's the sort of thing that we just love to find, and that my company Regal Robot actually made as a magnet and sold, because we love just ridiculous, obscure stuff from Star Wars. There's a cat skull on the wall.
This one stumped us for a while.
Yeah, and I'm mixed on it. So we found this was the best looking shot of it, and I turned it upside down, and I thought, is that a fish? Like, is it a space fish because it's upside down? I don't know. To me, it kind of looks like if you took a fish and drew some stuff on top of it, but who knows? Maybe someday a better picture will show up.
Here are the two. The production name is a hair mouse. It's since been known as Lutrillian, and that's the differentiation. One has flocked hair, one doesn't.
Yeah.
And in the
And some
shadows.
little changes to the eyes and the wrinkles. They had a few of these that got duplicated. These as well,
The
different
walrus.
hair, a little different neck on these two masks, and one of them got picked to be Jabba. And by the way, there's a blue snaggletooth for you. One of them got to be picked to be Jabba in the
Marvel Comics
Marvel
adaptation.
comic.
Yeah, here's Snaggletooth in various incarnations. The blue action figure, which really isn't based on anything. The one little action figure tidbit I like to call out is they made an action figure of the Hunchback one based on the black and white photograph that you have there, but the costume is not worn properly. So the action figure has a scarf, but it's not a scarf. It's a dickie. He actually is supposed to tuck it in.
Right.
That's his correct look in the middle.
Yeah, and those are two different masks. They're dressed a little differently. The colors of their shirt are slightly different. Their boots are different. Here's a duplication, R2-D2. So they fooled you with this shot.
Yeah, it's what's called a Texas switch in movie making. R2 could not actually take that corner as fast as he does in the movie. So in the film, it starts off looking in one direction with R2 coming towards you, then it pans, and then R2 comes from under camera heading away from you, and you just kind of interpret it as, oh, he turned the corner. He can't turn the corner that fast, so they actually had two R2 units in order to make that move.
And the R2 on the left is an R5 that they've erased some of the red stripes and stuff, it looks like.
Another great Cantina creature,
with
the praying
Jack
mantis.
Purvis and his son apparently underneath there with him, helping him run the mechanisms. This was an alien that never got made. The grasshopper alien was supposed to have a whole. These are more notes from Stuart Freeborn. There was a life cast, Barry Copping for that. It was supposed to have special action, which were these little antennae thing that actually turned up in a box of teeth and things that Stuart Freeborn had years later. Walrus Man. So
Surprising amount of mystery around Walrus Man.
yeah, for starters, how about that scarf?
Yeah, we didn't realize he had a scarf until we took a closer look. It's like, and he doesn't have it in every shot. So
True, and he's got. Sometimes he tucks it in.
Yeah.
He's also got these big flipper hands. But we don't know who played him. Here's like, a big main character, guy that's in a fight with Luke and that he's got action figures and everything. The interesting thing, though, is initially there's supposed to be a rodent and a fly in the fight with Luke. It eventually turns out to be Walrus Man and Dr. Evazan, but Cabe is in their little gang. And if you look, he's right between them. Evazan's talking to him. There's shots of him talking to him, in between things. Like, he's part of the gang, and that's why he's like so upset when you look at him there when Walrus Man goes down.
he's in shock. Yeah, there you go. He's got ape hands from the beginning of 2001, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
and they
which
just
Stuart
added
Freeborn
little
also
claws.
did. Yeah.
And those hands turn up on the rodent. Again, it's like existing hands with claws, basically, is in Stewart's notes. And Walrus Man, for all of the wide shots, everything in the UK, he shot with these big, giant hoof
Flippers,
hands.
yeah.
And ultimately, when they did the reshoots, they switched it to a werewolf hand that Rick Baker had, and they used the wrong gun because they only had Dr. Evazan's gun with them, stripped down, but close. How do you hold a gun with those hands? It turns out you just slice a hole in the bottom of it and jam the handle of the gun through.
Yeah.
But
Those
they're
hands
very
show up all
popular
over the place.
hands.
Yeah.
The reason they're popular is you only have one mold. It's very easy. There's no fingers to seam. So as an effects guy, they're really easy to make. But I still love your hockey theory.
Yeah, in order to explain the continuity error between the different hands, my thought was that Walrus Man is wearing gloves, and when a fight starts, just like a hockey player, and when a fight starts, he just shakes off his gloves and he's ready to fight.
And I just want to see in like an episode of The Mandalorian that somebody walking by a little merchant on the side with just racks of these gloves. And it's just like, oh, thank God, the continuity error. So originally, the script called for, or at least the novelization called for a monstrosity of multiple eyes, or the apartment house for wayward eyeballs, my favorite description from any book, which could only mean this guy, a.k.a. wrinkly blob with sucker mouth and pockmarked, wrinkled, disgusting quality to his skin. Thank you, Stuart Freeborn, for your descriptive notes. He's actually the person, or she technically, in canon that sells the land speeder. Awesome droid up front, that football head droid, and one of the back of one of the walruses where you can see the seam on the mask. Whoops.
Oh, so we've talked about this before, and it's always a treat. So the fight, as was embellished in the pickup photography that was done in the from the U.S., was originally going to be a lot more gruesome in terms of Obi-Wan taking out Walrus.
Well,
Man.
they're not going to want to see that.
Yeah,
though.
it's-
So we might have some footage that is not on any of the DVD releases, and it shows just how bad the fight was going to be for Walrus Man. If you guys want to see it, we'll play it. But if not, I would understand. All right. If you have small children, bring them up front so they can see it real good. Very luckily was still in Lucasfilm's bowels, and thank you to Pablo for pulling that out for
Discovered
us.
it one day, yeah, and it's great. This was done at ILM, and ILM may have gotten a little too enthusiastic about what they were interpreting the fight to be.
And yeah, so that didn't make the final cut. But our last thing for the day, that was not the worst of it. Old Ben had one other victim that day. Watch that cup. So in the process of his cutting the arms off, he also cuts the cup in half. And they made a practical effect on set with a little explosive to shoot the cup in the air as his lightsaber went by. And it's just one of these tiny little bits of detail that they put in this movie for us to find all these years later. Rest in peace, Cup. We hardly knew ye.
The funny thing is that the rigging of the cup to split in half, I was like, why did they bother? That's so interesting. And then I looked at the shooting schedule, and the fight in the cantina was the first thing they shot in the cantina. They shot that day one on April 13th. If that had been scheduled for any other day, they would not have bothered. They were so far behind by the time they got 3 days into the cantina. We're like, we're not going to bother doing this.
Exactly. So tomorrow at 1 p.m., the same place, we're going to do How Reshoots Saved the Cantina. We have 3 minutes left. And the spacing got a little weird. You can follow us at Tom Spina Designs, at Regal Robot, or at Infinata at bluesky.social. Does anybody have a quick question while we're still here? And we covered a lot of ground. Okay, yeah, what do you got? You just shout it from there.
Are you here the rest of the day anywhere if we wanted to meet you?
Yeah. So I'm running from here to a panel in room 104, and then that would be a great place. And after that, I'm out and free. And again, we'll be here tomorrow at 1, and after that panel, we'll be around as well. All right.
Well, thank you.
Well, that's one half of the Cantina. We hope you liked it. Thank you very much for sitting through, and hope you enjoyed.